Thank you very much, Hans. I don't know if it works. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Hans. I think that it is not a coincidence that we are here today in Madrid, because let's be honest, Spain and in Spain, with the rise of Albert Rivera and Ciudadanos, in my opinion, Spain is the last example of something that is how the old political order in Europe is dying. That is dying. The fact that in all the countries of the European Union decades ago, the power was monopolized by two parties always. By the socialists on the one hand and the conservatives on the other hand. And I strongly believe that one thing will happen in the election of 2019, that is that this old, tired political system will be whipped out by us and by the new movement we're going to create together, friends. That will happen. But I have to tell you one thing. I'm coming from Belgium, from the Benelux. I have to tell you that it started a little bit, if you allow me, not in Spain, but in the Low Countries. There was even a time that Spain and the Low Countries have to do something with each other, but okay, I will not go into the details. But if you have said, for example, more or less, I should say, 2 decades ago, that there will be a liberal prime minister in the Netherlands or a liberal prime minister in Belgium, people should have laughed at you. Because for years, I have to tell you, I was the only liberal prime minister in the council, and I was later joined by Anders Fogh Rasmussen. Now it's Lars Løkke Rasmussen, you know, Rasmussens, that is the whole political scene in Denmark. And I have to tell you that nearly the whole 20th century, it was unimaginable that there were liberals in the council. At best, what we were in the past was the third wheel on the wagon. We were, in fact, the occasional rescue when the two big political parties were not big enough to govern alone or were totally sick of each other. Last example in Germany, Christian Lindner is here, and he will make an end to that sick grand coalition in Germany, dear friends. So today it's a totally different day and different period. We are the strongest in the Benelux, we are the strongest in the Low Countries, in Northern Europe, in Denmark, in Finland, in Estonia. We are also the strongest in a number of Eastern European countries, and I'm pretty sure that more things will happen in the near future, because what happened yesterday in the north of Europe is happening today. You have to analyze very well what is happening in Europe for the moment, in the rest of Europe, in the east and in the south. A few weeks ago in Poland, the new mayor of Warsaw that has been elected is Rafał Trzaskowski, a true liberal that has been elected there. And in France we all know, but Astrid will tell us that far better than I do, Emmanuel Macron has put an end to a broken political system. Why a broken political system? Because at the end nobody saw the difference anymore between Hollande and Sarkozy. There is a lot of difference, but nobody saw it anymore in French politics. And the same here, Albert, here always Spain, that was or the Partido Popular, or the PSOE, or the PSOE, or the Partido Popular, and nobody saw anymore the difference in that binary system. And the same is, in fact, there's no exception in Italy. For decades, politics in Rome have been reduced to what I call a binary choice between or Berlusconi, or the PD, or the PD, or Berlusconi. And unfortunately, what is happening there is that this space that is left is filled up by nationalists and populists, but also there in Italy, friends, there is hope. There is a new party, our party, Più Europa, under the charismatic leadership of Emma Bonino. And let's applaud her. Now, What needs to happen is that the last domino of that system falls. And where is the last domino? In Germany, with the Große Koalition. You know how many they present? Less than 40% in the polls. Normally it was a result that the CDU got on its own. Well, also there, a renewed Liberal Party, a renewed FDP, pro-European, truly reformist, as Christian Lindner is building up, will fill the void. And I'm pretty sure that it will happen. But I have to put in this, in my intervention, one warning. One warning, that is that success is absolutely not guaranteed. And why? Because when an old political system becomes ashes, a ruin, it's also possible that evil can prevail. Autocracy, the opposite of liberal democracy. We see it in Poland, Kaczynski. We see it in Italy, Salvini. We see it certainly in Hungary with Orban. All three of them want to get rid of liberalism and liberal democracy. And all three of them want to establish an authoritarian and illiberal society. I am shocked. I don't know. I hope that everybody of you is shocked when I see that for the first time since the end of the Second World War, there is a free university in Europe that is forced to close its doors by an authoritarian government. That remembers me, the darkest ages of European history. And what is our European elite doing? And I mean with the European elite, the European People's Party, because they are still thinking that they are the European elite. Well, nothing at all. On the contrary. Mr. Kurz, who is the Austrian Chancellor, and from the EPP, and at the same time sharing the European Council for the coming months. Well, he has the nerve, en français, Astrid, on dit le culot, avoir le culot. He has the nerve to say and to declare that the place of Orban is well inside the European People's Party, the party of Schuman, the party of Adenauer, the party of Helmut Kohl. I say they would all three turn in their graves when they hear such a message. So I don't know how the vibes are between Madrid and Helsinki, but there is in any way one thing that I want to say to Mr. Kurz and also to Mr. Weber, that is, as long as Mr. Orban continues to be part of your club, I say you one thing, your club has in fact lost every credibility and certainly every moral authority to lead Europe and the European Union, dear friends. But the case of Hungary and of this University of CEU is in fact something that we have to analyze very closely, because that is what's happening while old-style political parties, to survive, embrace the opinions and the attitudes of the extreme right. In America, we see the same thing. What we are witnessing there is the Trumpanization of the Republican Party. The Grand Old Party was the party of Abraham Lincoln, who abolished slavery, now in the hands of somebody as Trump. Well, in Europe it's exactly the same. What we see today is the Urbanization of the European People's Party. And on both sides of the Atlantic, it's in fact the same what is happening. That is that what I should call moderate conservatism is being replaced by alt-right xenophobic attitudes and opinions. The best friend of Mr. Salvini are Mr. Seehofer and Mr. Sebastian Kurz. Well, I tell you, it's time to fight back. It's time to stop this, friends. And the elections of 2019 will be that fight, the ultimate fight for the soul of Europe, to rescue the soul of Europe. And I think that we have for that I think that we have for that a clear project. I will not go too much in details because we still have other, I think, congresses to talk about it. But there are 5 things that are very short to do. First, we have to be enabled to act in the future. Europe is not today. We are paralyzed on the budget. We are paralyzed on the banking union. We are paralyzed on the migration crisis. And you know why? In my opinion, for one thing, the existing of the unanimity rule. The unanimity rule in Europe has to disappear immediately and definitely, dear friends. Definitely. I gave you only one example why this is necessary also, I think, in foreign policies. I was shocked by what happened with the case of Khashoggi, this atrocious murder in that consulate there in Turkey. And the only thing what our Council of Ministers of Foreign Affairs was possible to do was to a weak condemnation of that atrocious case. While I think what we needed to do, with unanimity is that not possible, what we needed to do was a European-wide export ban on all weapons to Saudi Arabia, decided by the European Union. And it is not possible because unanimity makes it impossible. The second is Europe has to be also far less bureaucratic and more effective than today. I have to tell you one thing. I never liked the word, I'm sorry to Margaretha and to the commissioners, but I never liked the word European Commission. It reminds me of the Soviet Union. I don't know how it is with you. What we have and what we need to do is to call it what it really is and should be. The government of the European Union. The government of the European Union. That is what we want in Europe. Thirdly, we need a Europe that is committed to all policies, not a Europe a la carte like in a restaurant when you enter and you say, I want this and that with these rebates, these opt-ins, these opt-outs, these earmarks. Fourth, we need a serious budget in Europe. Instead of what I call the pathetic 1% of the European GDP, let's be honest, people are asking to us, establish a European border and coast guard, create a defense union, invest in the future. And how can you do that with 1%? But we cannot fall in the trap again of what I call the transfer union when we have for the moment. The transfer union is a consequence of the fact that our budget is financed with national contributions. Let it finance directly by the Europeans so that this transfer union is over from tomorrow on. And then thirdly and fourthly, and I think that a new Europe, a really true sovereign Europe, able to protect its borders, able to protect its interests, is the next thing what we need to do. To stand up, if necessary, against Putin, if it is necessary. You know what the figures are today, dear friends. You know what the figures are. We, the European countries, are spending 40 to 45% of the budget of the American army, but we are only capable to fulfill 10 to 15% of the operations of the American army. Even I am a lawyer, so I don't know nothing about mathematics. Nevertheless, I was Minister of Budget. But I have to tell you one thing, as you are Minister of Budget, you need to know nothing about mathematics. Only the word no. That's all the only thing what you need to know. Well, I have to tell you, I'm a lawyer, but even I know that we are 3 to 4 times less efficient than the Americans. Moreover, the reality is that we spend 3 times more than the Russian Federation on military. But I'm not sure that if the Russian army comes towards our borders, we are capable to defend ourselves without American help. So the French president, Emmanuel Macron, 2 days ago, there's an enormous shift in the position of France. That was not always the case. In 1954, Astrid, it was the French National Assembly who voted against the European defense community. So things are changing. Certainly in France, it was President Macron in a speech in the commemoration of the First World War who said, totally right, 28 different armies, that's a waste of money, and at the same time, it's also a danger for our collective security, and that has to change in Europe. So, that's our project. And the only and last question that I want to raise with you is now how to achieve this, how to win this, because Europe needs it. So the first thing, and Hans said it already, what we not need to do is to play the game of the two old-style political parties of SD and EPP, the game of fake democracy, giving the people the impression that they decide. Spitzenkandidaten without transnational lists, without that the European citizen can vote for them, is, in my opinion, more an instrument to keep the power into the hands of the old political system. Because already now, we know what the outcome will be. Yesterday, in Helsinki, Manfred Weber of the EPP already said, look, it's easy, we're going to be the biggest, and we're going to have the Commission presidency, and he says that 6 months before the elections. And we know what will happen. The EPP will buy the votes of the SD in the good old style of the Grand Coalition. With what? We know it. The mandate of High Representative. Well, I tell you, that's exactly the system that needs to be broken in 2019, in which mandates have become more important than the project and than the content, dear friends. And to win this fight, and that will be my last point, we need all hands on deck, all pro-European forces. It will be liberals, Democrats, reformists, centrists, progressive, call them what you want. I know sometimes we use different words, but what really counts, that is that we have the same ideas, that we have the same ambition for Europe. And so to all our French friends present here today, sometimes scared by the word liberal, let me recall one thing. That is that the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor, the symbol of liberalism, was a gift of the people of France to the people of America. And in a certain way, after Brexit, we can say it easily, it are the French that have invented liberalism, but okay, that's maybe some bit exaggerated. So let's work together in a platform, in a team that can lead and prepare our continent for the future, and that is capable, and we're gonna do it, to beat the nationalists and the populists in the four corners of Europe. And therefore, I have you one request to every individually of you. That is that tomorrow you have to vote on an important resolution. A resolution introduced by Ciudadanos, D66, FDP, NEOS, Nowoczesna, Radical Venstre, and not to forget the VVD, on our future cooperation with La République En Marche and with others. Well, let's start that cooperation. Vote massively so this resolution. And if we have the guts to do so tomorrow, unanimously, I should say, even when that is not very liberal, to do, I'm pretty sure we will succeed. We're gonna win the elections of 2019, and we're gonna radically, radically change this landscape in Europe in 2019. Let's go for it. Thank you.